Trevor. Utah, how's it going, man?
Hey, it's going good, Trevor. It's good to talk to you. I'm excited to do this interview.
It's been a really long time since we've actually had a little chit chat. Anyway, so it was really good to get you on here. I know you're a man of not a lot of interviews, and I was like, man, I want to get him on and just talk and because like my experiences with you in life so far have been nothing but just awesomeness. So I'm like, man, everybody needs to know Leland.
Well, likewise, yeah. Like you said, this isn't really a format I've ever done, even though I've been you know, a musician in Visigoth. I've been doing bands and stuff. It's like you and I have talked about in the past. Like, some people are very, uh, they are a kind of like a public facing persona if they're like a front man of a band like yourself or something like that. And then some people are kind of like, it's not that I'm not out there like in photographs or playing live, but it's like, I guess not known for being like a person that does interviews or anything, even though I have done some here and there. But I mean, likewise to you, every time we've hung out, it's been great. Like I always learn so much just talking to you, man. And it's been great being your friend and stuff. So I think I'm really excited just to do it, just to talk.
Remember we actually first met, and it might have been Frost and Fire.
Yeah, it was.
But so me meeting you was kind of insane because there's this whole thing of getting together for Frost.
Yeah.
And I'm like the non-part, and like I was like, hey man, I'm gonna get my own room, but I'll give you some money for the room because I told you I'd stay with y'all.
Yeah,
but
we somehow
still ended up.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I just can't do that shit.
Yeah, no, we had definitely we had done the thing with man, I love Frost and Fire. We did the thing where we had booked a hotel room and crammed way too many people into it. That kind of, you'll see that at like some of these festivals. And we had offered, we're like, hey Trevor, you want to come stay with us? And you were like, sure. And I hadn't actually met you but like yet at that point, but we couldn't get you like a hotel room card key or something, so you had to book your own hotel. I felt bad about that. I was just like, oh, I'm sorry, man. You're like, I don't know if I'm gonna, like I'm not gonna wait around for this. Like I need somewhere to sleep or just to unwind, which I totally understand. But it didn't stop us from being friends, which is great. But it was definitely one of those situations for sure. I know.
It was insane. I remember. Right now, I'm gonna get myself adjusted, and Larson that does Hell's Heroes.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, just get her. And I was like, fuck it, because But at the same time, I got to hang out with you vividly. You were actually changing your guitar strings for the show.
Yeah.
And you were dealing with your Floyd Rose, which we all know is just.
I just hate it. I just hate it.
Before a gig, your Floyd.
Yeah. I feel like on the one hand, as far as, because I've been playing shows with Visigoth on one for forever, since the start of the band, I do like how it is in some ways the most reliable way to keep that guitar in tune throughout the show. And I like standard bridge guitars too, and like if you set them up right, it's fine too. But there's a certain amount of reliability with the Floyd that I like there, where it will keep your guitar in tune. You can do some fun stuff with the whammy bar if you want to do that. But what I hate about it is just like, if one thing goes wrong, like if you're you have a humidity crisis or something like that, or you're just really struggling to get it in tune, it can be really nerve-wracking when it's like you got to get on that stage in like half an hour and you're still changing your strings. So I think it's a mixed bag, man. Like yeah.
It goes haywire every night.
Every night. Yeah.
beforehand, I'll get on stage and I'll.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
sitting on stage, you're like, ugh,
No.
you know, you're
Yeah.
like, fucking Floyd Rose.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Mm.
When you bend on that motherfucker, that's the string.
Yeah, it does.
If
Yeah.
I bend the G hard, it goes fucking flat
Mhm.
instantly.
Mhm.
Period
Yep.
is to avoid G string tuning.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful.
And every time I fuck, it was like this shit was shit. So it's saying the string.
Mhm. You're good. I can hear you smoothly though,
I'm
at
gonna
least.
switch. I'm glad. I'm glad somebody's saying something any better. Lee, are you still there?
Yeah. Yeah, you look a lot clearer.
Okay, so let's see what it could be. A fucking motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like these things, it's tricky,
Mhm.
and we do need to have good wireless.
Yeah, do no editing, no mistakes, right? Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. Mhm. Oh, yeah, dude. That one is near. Well, man, that's a great question. No, I do remember that gig. I think that. Oh, no, can you hear me now? Am I still breaking up? I think I lost you. Try and move this. Should you Oh, dude, there
Let
was
me
a
try a
major
different.
lag there. Yeah.
Oh, you just changed, but I don't know if I'm choppy.
I lost you for a good few minutes. Can you hear me now? I can just hear your voice. You're frozen on my end. Yeah, you look frozen to me right now.
Okay, now you're back. Now you're back. So it must be on my end.
Are you I could try to turn
That's
off the Wi-Fi on
fucking.
my end.
Oh shit! Yeah, now I see all. Well, weird. Okay, so he said much better. So I didn't even see these messages before down here popping up. So
Yeah.
my bad. My apologies. I live in a fucking huge city. Internet is just like why? I don't know why in this where I this is the only place. But like um so yeah, he says I'm in and out a lot on this one, but I feel like it's better. So let's continue on because I can see you again.
Okay.
You're all frozen on the last one, so
Yeah.
I think that was on my bad. So sorry about that, man. It's obviously not of mine. There's nothing I can do about this. It's a fucking motherfucker. I have to try to have a conversation. I was like, it's like
Yeah, yeah.
fucking crazy, but I can hear you. I can hear you again. So anyway,
I wanna say, like, 4? Yeah, that makes sense. I know it was at the Ventura Theater, I remember that, and I can't remember if it was the first one they did at the Ventura Theater or, like, a second one. Um, I if I'm remembering correctly.
hold on before you do that. We're gonna get and I'm gonna change my fucking location
Okay.
to see if anything betters because I don't.
Gotta go outside to get the better signal.
Me see how this is out here because now I'm outside and it's like nice and sunny out, but it is a little chilly. But how's that? Is that better?
It seems to have fixed the issue, whatever it is, because now you look more synced up. Yeah, a little bit more at least, dude.
I mean, I'm outside. Like,
I
what the like? You'd think that like where the wireless routers are would be good, but anyway,
no, they I don't know, who knows, man. There's lead in your building or something. No worries. I think so. Was that the one where Sirith Ungol was like their first show back or something like that? And was am I remembering correctly? They headlined that one? Yeah. I mean that
it wasn't their first. I think it was. I don't, they were the headliners though for
yeah.
one of the nights, and then Satan as well. But I could be
And
mistaken because
dude,
there's
I mean,
others.
like,
So
hats
I mean,
off to
now
you if
my
you can
brain is
remember
like,
back that
ah,
far. A lot of these, like, it's not like a trying to be pretentious, but sometimes these festivals and shows can blend together a little bit because you're like, oh, I remember like so many good times, but then you kind of forget which one happened where. I do remember the one where I met you though, and I think it was, we were playing on the Ventura Theater, and it was that one was memorable because at that point, Visigoth hadn't actually played that many large theater type stages. And we've got
mhm.
like I'm sure lots of bands. I'm sure you've been through this too, where it's like you get used to a certain size of stage, like that small club, and then suddenly it's like a festival, and you're on like a stage that's way bigger than you've ever played, and like everything's different. Like if you don't have in-ear monitoring or whatnot, like suddenly it's just like,
Yeah,
oh, I can hear nothing, or I can just hear my guitar it sounds like really far away, and then like a hi hat and maybe the snare. Those were always. I remember when we first played those; those were always kind of spooky because you didn't know, like how off the rails is going to get with the on-stage monitoring. But at least from what I remember, that show went really well, and I don't know, we were pumped about that. Like, it's always such a rush. I think getting on stage. Like, I don't know how you if you still get like stage nerves even after so many shows that you
I
played.
was hella nervous at that time
Yeah, yeah.
because Haunt was new then.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Because like
yeah.
I had already been out doing like the whole doom metal thing for like
Mhm,
years,
mhm.
and I was really like comfortable in that scene,
Yeah,
and then to like jump ship into a different realm of bands and different people. Even though I was tour hardened, I mean, I had
right.
just
Yeah.
when it started, I had just got off tour with Zach Sabbath for a month, which is
Hmm.
Zach Wild's like that was the biggest tour I had ever done because it was like 1,500 people every night. That
Oh, I'm
fucking shit
sure.
was
Yeah.
packed. And you want to talk about playing big ass stages? It was like big ass stage every night, hella people. So I wasn't, like with that, I was really confident at the time. But going into Haunt, I was a little bit more nervous because everything was new. And so the stage size, I was already kind of getting used to that with having, we had just also, now that I think about it, we had just got back from Europe too.
Hmm.
Not Haunt, but Beastmaker. We were
Hmm.
out with Stone Jesus, who is a fucking huge band in Europe. I had never heard of them.
Yeah.
And we got over there and I'm like, okay, let's see. I wonder how this is going to turn out. Like I don't really know this band much and
Hmm.
yada, yada, yada. And shit, dude, they just drew the crowds nightly. And
Hmm.
it really put a lot. I mean, that tour really changed my perspective of what I wanted to do
Yeah.
because like,
Yeah.
even though they were like considered like a doom stoner band,
Hmm.
I think like we looked, I hate this, it sounds so stupid, but we kind of maybe looked a little bit too rugged
Uh-huh.
is the word I'm gonna say, like leather and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when I looked out in the crowd, I didn't even see a leather jacket, which was like
Yeah. Yeah.
always kind of weird to me. It's more hippie shit and like,
Hmm.
so we're up there and I'm all fucking tattooed and
Right.
and
Right.
I didn't think people really like liked it. But it's interesting. So I think Conqueror's Oath wasn't Conqueror's Oath released in 2018 as well?
Yeah, that sounds right. I think it was. I mean, I because I remember 2017 working on it, and then it was released early 2018, I believe, and then we had I think our second time in Europe ever right after that was released, and that was a trip. That was crazy. Like people had been Visigoth had been doing well or like being known and stuff from the first album. People liked that one
Oh yeah.
quite a bit, and then but
Sick.
it was really that second album when it came off. It was like whoa, things are different. And like Visigoth, like I think I've told you before, but it might be interesting to talk about. Like Visigoth technically is our all of our baby band, right? Like so Visigoths had the same. By baby band, I mean like we were a local band for like 6 years, right? Just playing
Yeah.
local shows and stuff, and we had a couple lineup changes at the start, but it's really been the same lineup this whole time, which is like unheard of. And
Yeah, that's
so
crazy.
so basically when we started, we were like in our early 20s. Like I think when we signed with Metal Blade, I was like 22 or 23 or something like that, right? It's just like, whoa, what's happening? And so we did that. And so like my experience from like then to when Conquerors Out came out in 2018, like there's a lot of growing and maturing, but it was wild because like since we all were together at that start, where it's just local shows, like maybe one local show a month or something like that. We play. I think the first festival we ever played was Ragnarocker in Chicago. Did you ever make it out to that one or
No,
remember that one?
way
Okay,
too far, bro. I mean,
dude. Yeah,
I'm
it's
in town.
dude.
I mean, look outside right now,
I
bro.
know.
Like,
Yeah.
I might everybody that's watching right now is probably snowed in and frozen.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
in a tank top outside my house right now.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
little chilly, but it ain't bad. So it's like,
Right,
but anyway, no,
right.
I've never gone to the Ragnarok thing, but
Oh,
like,
it was
I go to Chicago to play. I love
r-
Chicago.
yeah, Reggie's one of my favorite, one of the
Reggie's
best, dude.
awesome.
It's
Yeah,
amazing.
for sure.
Um, so I guess the point I'm trying to get to here was you were talking about how your perspective changed on those big tours you got to do. Like
Sure.
man, it was we after when we went to Europe after that second album, we were like my perspective was like, whoa, like this is different. Like there are so many more people that like are and it was all good. And I don't know, like it might seem, from someone outside that maybe isn't a musician or your band is at a different level or you may have different experiences. Like it was just weird coming from like really being like your local band to doing it a bit more professionally. It was kind of like a bit of a shock sort of way and but in I guess in a good way. And I guess I don't know, I sometimes think about that and I'm like, yeah, we've been so lucky to have had the opportunities and be able to like just even honestly like to be straight up like the whole idea of someday going out and playing a show in Europe, like that was kind of like the goal. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that was like,
fuck
wow,
yeah.
I don't even know what we do. Like we've made it. You know what I mean? It was just like
Yeah.
that was it, and we got there, and that was an amazing experience. But also like, one of those things where you realize, well, was like, well, now where do we go from here, kind of thing, and it's kind of that foray into being like a I guess like an amateur musician to being like semi-pro, maybe
For
all the way
sure.
pro. Like, and what are those deviations? And it's like nobody tells you what that is. You know what I mean? Like, unless you already have you're a professional musician as a family member or a good friend or something like that. You kind of just find out for yourself. And one thing I've noticed, like talking to you and talking to other people, is like,
Hold on one
oh,
second.
sorry,
I gotta
go ahead,
ask. No, I gotta
go ahead.
ask you before you go too far into this.
Yeah.
Where was the first? Do you remember where was the first show in Europe that you played? What city, town? Do you remember? Or what country?
Okay, so the very first Europe show was definitely, easy. I mean, it was Keep It True in
Okay, so you're in Germany.
Ladekonichtshofen. Yeah, that was the very first one we
All right.
played. So Germany for sure, which is it makes sense. That country, man, it like live music there is like a national recreation or something. It's like people love music here in the States, but there's something about Germany where you know, there's just so much going on all the time. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Oh, oh, really? Okay. I dude, dude, you're choppy. I can hear you, but you're just still the video is just choppy. Yeah. Dude, if you can still hear me, honestly, man, I can't hear any of that stuff in the background.
Good
Uh,
deal then.
yeah.
Good deal. All right, I'm back. So anyway, so yeah, so Germany. Now go ahead and go on with the perspective of it all.
The So I was just talking about how Germany's like it's kind of a trip, if you because I hadn't traveled internationally to Europe, that it was because of the band I was able to go over there. But I was just struck how like it's not there's all it's just that the people there like going out to see live music is like a I was saying like it's like just like a recreational thing that's maybe a little more or just done a little differently than here in the States. Like people will come out, and of course like metal fans there are metal super popular in especially in Germany, and people just love it. And so that's why it's I guess not surprising that was our first country we played. As you know too, right? But I'm just kind of stating in general. It was like I'm like,
Honestly,
wow, like this is different.
I'll be
Yeah.
real with you. My first European show was not in Germany. It was in
Okay.
England.
Okay. Cool.
So
Yeah.
so I had a little bit different experience. So we got signed to Rise Above Records, and
Hmm.
almost like you guys, it was like, I we had like we used to laugh. We had this ongoing joke in Beastmaker that we got a record deal before we had a T-shirt
Yeah. Yeah.
because of the internet and like the Bandcamp thing and all that.
Yep.
Because like we were fucking around locally and we just put like a demo EP out, and 2 weeks later
Hmm.
we're on Rise Above Records,
Hmm.
and dude was like, "Hey, I want you guys should." He's like, "I'm curating Roadburn Festival in Tilburg,
Hmm.
and Blood Ceremony is coming over here, and my new band With the Dead are gonna be touring." So we met up with Lee Dorian. I mean, it's pretty awesome in hindsight. Like, there was some turmoil and amongst, obviously, because I had Beastmaker and then I have Haunt, right, and like, and
Hmm.
now I'm like independent, and I used to be on
Hmm.
Rise Above Records back
Hmm.
in the but at the time it was really amazing to like go. I met Lee Dorian in person and for the first time, and he actually fell down some stairs. It was
Oh.
insane.
Oh no.
Carrying a cab, we're like, oh shit.
Oh fuck.
I was like, oh my god. But we met them, and I think the first show was actually in Manchester,
I
which is
love
kind of
Manchester.
wild. So I almost
Yeah.
got hit by a car that day too,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
didn't realize that cars came in the opposite direction at you.
Right. Yeah.
So I was just like,
Yeah.
holy shit, I almost got killed.
Uh,
But
I got to go to Manchester once, and I love that city. Did you get to see all the canals and stuff?
yeah, we
Yeah,
saw a little bit, but
like a little bit. Okay.
it's always been really challenging for us to get out and do a lot of sightseeing. Like
Oh yeah, of course.
a lot of the
Yeah.
times it's just like we just end up in the hotel like the whole fucking day. But we got
Mhm,
a
mhm.
question, so this is
Sure.
something that we can answer.
Yep.
Can you
Mm.
please talk about the differences between pros, semi-pros, and beginners that no one talks about, like you mentioned?
Okay. I'll try to keep this concise. I mean, I'm not a well, I'll try to go from my experience. I'll try to keep it as concise spot. I tend to rant, so you can cut me off whenever you're like, "Hey,
Go, you
you're
go,
babbling."
go. I'm curious. I'm
Um,
curious of what your thoughts are, to be honest with you. So I'm listening just as
well,
Alter Mover Xbox is.
yeah, I would say that like a beginner or baby band, as I've heard it be called, is like, you could have been a musician for 10, 20 years, whatever it is, but you're a baby band really when you're making that first record in the studio. Maybe it's like your first time like actually recording, so on and so forth, or like you've just gotten signed and now it's time for your first record, right? So unless you have like some guidance or like a kind of like someone that's mentoring you or that's been there before, kind of helping you along the step of the way, you kind of just run into challenges. And like every band has a different path to going into like what I'd say like a semi-pro or professional career would be. But beginner is just like, you're making your first real like studio recording, and obviously you probably played shows at that point. But really when you get into like what I'd think of as semi-pro, is like now you're being booked like a festival, or you're going on your first tour maybe with another band that goes on tour and that kind of thing. And
Yeah,
like it's interesting because like usually uh it you know a lot of bands, there's at least one guy that's very seasoned like with touring. He's been in lots of bands, or maybe he's older than the rest of the guys, and kind of knows the ropes. But at least in Visigoth's case, and like in some bands, like if you're all at the same experience level, you all go out on the road and you just encounter it together, you know what I mean? And you got to figure out like,
yeah,
like, oh, where are we going to stay tonight? Like we didn't figure that out in advance. We got to find a hotel, and like maybe we're sleeping in the van, and maybe we're all tired, or like something like God forbid the van breaks down or something like that.
oh
And dude, I would say almost like you I think what no one explains is like you spend however long it takes you to get your technical ability, your songwriting, your playing, your performing ability to a professional level. Like it might be 10 years of that, and then like, oh, like we play music like at a professional, like we're good. But to be a professional musician, it's like everything else. Like you're
yeah,
managing stress, being able to deal with conflict in a mature way, being able to plan, dealing with logistical issues, or like being able to roll with like when things fall through. Like, well, what do we do now? We got to figure it out. Like I think being a professional is kind of being able to keep a cool, uh, like a clear head, even if things get a little difficult. And then it's this is just my interpretations of it. Like when do you actually know if you're pro or not pro? I'd say like if you got signed to a label, and like you're being booked shows, and you're selling your merch, and you're getting paid like a guarantee, like that's a pathway. You're in those moments a professional musician. But some people might,
getting
yeah,
paid makes you a professional for sure.
yeah, pretty much. And then it's also the way, if you're respectful, and it's a level of respect you can show other people and like make friends and stuff in the
Lee,
industry. That's
let's
super
hold
important.
1 minute. Let's hold a
Okay,
minute.
that's
You
it.
can see it's getting dark now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get my sweatshirt, and I
Okay.
have this. I have a floodlight back here,
Okay.
so I'm gonna flip my floodlight on just in case it starts to get dark, and
You're
it's
good.
starting to get chilly.
Okay.
Luckily, my car my car is right there because so the garage, so I didn't even have to run in. I had a
Oh,
hoodie
nice. Okay.
already in there, but I do not like sleeved anything, so I feel like
Yeah.
I'm like
Yeah,
hoodie.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
I know.
I think you're that answer that question better than you know far beyond what you hear out there. That is exactly how I feel the same way with it. Your beginning
Right.
is when you're a local band, just
Mhm. Mhm.
playing
Mhm.
for free or just whatever.
Whatever. Yeah.
Semi pro, I would, like I'd say, like you're not on a label, but touring.
Mhm.
You know
Mhm.
what I mean? You're getting out there. I
Yep.
feel like that's like the semi pro level. And then pro is like you're on a label, you're getting paid to go play
Mhm.
shows. That's pro. So I mean, there's a lot of tiers of professional too.
Oh, so many. Yeah.
there's a ladder on all of those. So beginning there's like 10 steps,
Mhm.
semi pro 10 steps,
Yeah.
pro 10 steps.
Yeah.
It's just there's an evolution to all of the
Mhm.
things that it requires. I love that you talked about how like when you're the pros, it's more like you know what's going on, what's going to happen, you got to have a hotel, you got
Mhm.
the,
Mhm. Mhm.
everything's you're not doing it at the heat of the moment, like it's not just like, oh shit, like
Right.
it's
Yeah.
3 a.m., we don't have a place to sleep,
Right. Yeah.
that
Or
kind of thing. That separates the men from the boys ultimately
yeah.
in a way of like knowing what to do. And you know it's pretty wild. See, I've been playing guitar for 20 years and been playing in bands for 15 years. What are pointers to go to semi pro and pro for someone that has done local shows but want to go to the next level? I mean, my like, do you want to answer that first, and I'll put in my 2 cents?
Sure. I've got, I could talk for I could never stop talking about this. This is fascinating. So what I would say the main thing, it's a couple things specifically for me, and I've got my reasons. I think the number one thing you can do to kind of go from a local musician to a semi-pro or pro is, if you haven't already, really get into recording yourself in a DAW and learning how to use recording materials, because I think that one of the biggest skills you can have if you're a guitar player, especially, is uh, one, recording yourself for the purpose of, you know improving your ability to write songs in whatever your chosen genre is. Because like, my theory, I've heard this being talked about before, is like, really what drives you to go farther from being a local band is the quality of songwriting, which is this ephemeris thing, which is, like, what makes a song good versus makes a song like, okay, like, it's it's really difficult. I'd say, like, playing your instrument and mastering your instruments one skill that can take, I don't know, 10 years, however long, to get to a level of mastery. But then you also have to, know your way around recording for the purposes of, producing yourself, getting ready to go into a pro studio, getting used to recording, and then also songwriting. But I think where the rubber hits the road is really being able to record yourself and get comfortable with that, because that's, in at least in my opinion, the most challenging thing, is getting those recordings, which are really, without that and without original songs, like, you don't it's hard. Like, you can be a cover band or whatnot, but, writing music and recording it like that, those are like the kind of the you can't get around those things, and if you get a really good, you know uh, ep, an album that's really good, that's going to open doors for you to go, possibly play one of these like bigger festivals or tours, and then all your experience playing locally and live can come into play, and you can show, like, yeah, look how great of a show I can put on. But like, you need you need your album, you need the recordings to be good, or you need just the songs to be good too. And that's kind of it might be vague, but it's at the same time, it's also the most difficult thing, in my opinion. It's like, there's you be technically proficient in it, but you got to have, like, um, like, because the song is what resonates with your fans, the audience, right? It's what kind of
Yeah,
pulls people in. Like, do they
yeah,
remember it? And like, if you have a lot of money and you can afford a good studio, that's great. If you got a label deal, but If you're just doing it, on a low budget, the more you can do it yourself, the better off you'll be. At least to start making that transition. And I don't know about you. I know you've got a home studio and all that, and you're very
I
experienced
mean, you can
recording.
see it behind
Yeah,
me. I
yeah,
got
yeah,
diffusers on my.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
People
it.
don't. I think I made. Did I find a spot in my studio that's
I
working?
think so. I think so. It looks. It's okay.
Clearly, it's like in sync in here. I just wanted to go inside. It's just getting fucking like
Yeah, yeah,
it's getting dark. I was like, I don't want to be in the
yeah,
dark. Like I'm sitting here, I'm like,
yeah,
yo.
yeah.
Important thing to getting to the next level is exactly like what Leland was saying is the song. Like
Songwriting.
you
Hmm.
need a good song
Hmm.
and it, you know like realistically just make sure it has some sort it's catchy
Hmm.
in some way or
Hmm.
has some sort of repetition like you make sure your choruses are strong
Hmm.
think about it nice and clearly about like what it is that you're trying to do
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
is because there's a lot of different ways of choruses go sometimes it's
Oh
like a
yeah.
repetition and then
Hmm.
other times it's just the phrase at the end whatever the title of the song is
Yeah, yeah.
so goddamn dude I'm getting fucking just bombarded dog come on in she's like or let me in say hi
You're good, man. It's just
yeah.
that's just how
Say
real life
hi
goes. Aw.
like she is
What's his
she's the
name? Or
grandma
she?
she's the grandma of the circus here.
Oh,
She has a bed. Go lay in your bed.
oh,
Lay to bed.
sweetie.
But yeah, you gotta have something good. Like so, that's how I like. Looking back in the song that I wrote to get that got me signed, like
Hmm.
I don't even write like in like I've gone like in a completely different direction. The song though was "You Must Sin," and I will tell you this: there was a couple things that I did when I put that out that I put a lot of thought
Hmm.
into. First off, was the
Hmm.
graphic.
Hmm.
So we took an old 70s film called Dr. Phibes with Vincent Price.
Hmm.
And I used to have like a kind of decent collection of movie lobby posters. I
Oh
used to
yeah,
collect
nice.
them. Like
Yeah.
some people that have been following me for a long time will probably remember me going live on Facebook in like 2015. I mean, this it seems almost like a so long ago, but there are people that have been with me that long and have been following me that long that would remember. I used to have like a wood paneling room. It was before we bought this house. It was like we were just getting ready to move when Beastmaker kind of started rolling. We
Hmm.
were getting the house, and I was gonna do all this stuff so I can have a career in music. But
Yeah, it's so
yeah,
important. Yeah.
you must the artwork. So it really played well because like Dr. Phibes was already written in blood.
Hmm.
And I was like, all right, so Beastmaker, we're gonna have our logo is gonna be blood dripping.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then we had, Vincent Price's face in this like filtered yellow from like the 70s. It looked
Yeah, yeah,
fucking awesome.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then all we did underneath it was put "You must sin" in Old English. And that alone,
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I know it for a fact, like with the image and then to the songs that we
Hmm.
were doing, very
Hmm.
like, Blasted and the Deadbeats were gaining a lot of traction at that time.
Hmm.
And, like, so we came in too late, but at the same time, that is what got me into being a professional musician.
Yep.
That fucking moment in time when
Hmm.
all of it came together.
Hmm. Hmm.
We recorded it in my bedroom. So
Yep.
we got a record deal off a bedroom recording.
There you go. There you go, man. And I hope people that are interested hear that and are encouraged that like it can really be like a bedroom recording. I mean,
It can.
but
The
it has,
song is all. The
but you
song is
have,
all.
yeah,
If
you
you
have
can
to
afford
record
a
yourself.
studio,
Yeah,
if you can afford a studio, I always say this is
sure.
kind of funny. If you can afford a studio, you're not really a musician because musicians can't afford studios.
Yeah, you're
you're
incredibly
something
privileged.
else.
It's like, yeah,
Where did you get all your money? You went to college,
yeah,
didn't you? You're a professor.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
but no, there's the only thing that I found with starting like doing the bedroom recording is it was weird because when I asked Lee Dorian, the owner of Rise Above, like
Mhm,
I was like, "Do you want us to go into a studio? What do you want to do?" And
mhm.
he's like, "Do what you did on You Must Sin." And I was like, I recorded it in my bedroom on like
Yeah,
I thought
right.
I know my gear. It was an Apogee Quartet, and at that time, that was the biggest deal I had. And I had
Mhm.
some AKG. I remember I used AKG C214,
Okay, yeah. Mm,
really small drum set. We had a
mhm,
hard time. This room was small, so all my gear in it, it was like, holy shit, like it was. There was a small walking path.
mhm.
So we used a 20-inch kick on it, which is. And so I had we just put a mic on the snare drum and a
Mhm,
mic in the kick drum. So we had
mhm,
overhead, snare,
mhm.
kick drum. No
Yep,
tom mic, which
yep,
actually worked out for that genre
yep.
just fine. And then I just went back over it and we had no idea what we're doing other than like, okay, it can't be clipping, because that was
Mhm.
like my
Yep,
first record. That was like
yep.
the first recording, that like anybody really ever heard that we did. And
Right,
it's just
yeah.
funny that we got a record deal.
Yeah, yeah.
But so that's how we did all that. We didn't have expensive mics by any means. We had good
Mm-mm.
gear, and obviously, like I said, like if you're running an interface and you go into go just get a good interface like Apogee or Universal Audio.
Mhm.
I know there's a lot of other companies now like Antelope Audio, and there's some others. That's their connection in the music world. But
So you're a Mac guy?
the quartet is a good interface. You're not gonna be dealing with latency
Yeah.
issues or anything. You're getting a really good sample rate and all that stuff. But at the time, I we didn't really know much about like mixing and
Oh, yeah.
mastering and that kind of thing at all. So like we were using I remember on that specifically, we used there used to be it might still exist. I just don't know. There's a web based program called Landar, Landar.com, and you go up and you sign up to be a member of it, and it's like super cheap. It was only like I think it might have been $49 for like the whole year. It was like really inexpensive.
Mhm,
And what you do is so you would mix your song on your DAW or whatever you use, like Logic Pro is what I use,
mhm,
but there's Pro Tools, there's
mhm.
Ableton, there's Sonar. You can go down the list of DAWs, but so you would mix it and then you would drop it into a little thing on your web browser. You just
Mhm.
drag it.
Yeah. Yeah.
First place.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. You don't know anything.
Like it's weird, and I didn't know
Mhm, mhm. Yeah.
I ended up just having had us, you know, the one thing that was awesome about that fucking deal with Rise Above was I invested all of the money into gear. So we
Perfect. Yeah.
upgraded from the Apogee Quartet to the Apogee Ensemble Thunderbolt. So now we're Thunderbolt connected. So we have like no latency, lightning
Mhm.
quick. I mean, there is latency, but I mean, you could get it really. I mean, you don't know, like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you have no clue. I mean, there's obviously you can get it up to like, 56 and shit, and it's just like, yeah, I don't, or 58, and you're like at 128 your sample rate, and it's still wonderful. So that was a major upgrade, and now I have 8
Yeah.
inputs, and it comes with 8 inputs. This time around we mic'd the
Yeah.
toms.
Yeah.
So, there's it was great that he encouraged me, because obviously you can see behind me
Mhm.
now. I don't think you've ever seen in here, but I have like that's my desk back
Right.
there. I don't even want to move.
Yeah. No.
I don't want to fucking move right
You're
now.
good. You're
But
good.
you can see I have all these diffusers in
Mhm.
the room, and so over there, I have just a digital mixing console. Yeah, I've seen your setup right on. So is that
So,
Focusrite? Is that what you're using?
yeah, I was gonna say. So I just use the this for guitar recording and my own vocals. Honestly, man, like as far as like latency goes, it's different for everyone's setup, and I'm a PC user, so I'm screwed,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah.
as far as PC and this, what I really like about the Focusrite, like I'm doing a sales pitch for it. I'm not sponsored by it,
No, it's
but
all good.
but but
It's
they've
all
got
good.
this. You see, it says instrument right. There's an instrument preamp, which
Okay.
basically so like for uh my new project that I'm working on, Savage Oath. We recorded all of our guitars and bass through the same. All of us, like we're all separated in the country. We all recorded with the same Focusrite and the same instrument preamp. And what that does is it like adds a little bit of gain to the DI signal. So when you reamp it, it just sounds a little bit better. That's what they tell you, but like A being like the line signal versus that little preamp, it does sound a little bit better. And it's like, well, that's cool. So I like that, but mostly what I like about this is that you just plug it into your computer. It auto puts like the drivers on that. You're not fucking around with that. It just works. And I can just um I would say like if someone's like, well, like I have the option to get whatever computer, right? It's probably easier for Mac users to get into music recording because like there's more stuff that syncs better with Mac. But if you're stuck with it,
It just runs
it's
better.
just
Macs
better.
just run better
Yeah,
for these kind of projects.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna say anything about PC, but let me just tell
Oh
you this, because I can't even make a comparison to PC personally, because
right.
I haven't owned
Yep.
a PC in 25 years.
That's me though. Yeah. But if
So I don't
yeah, you
even
you don't
know.
know. You don't know,
I'm like, it's a
dude.
computer. It has a
Yeah.
processing chip. It uses CPU. It has
Right.
RAM. I mean, I don't know what it is, but that whole thing. So there's something I want to add to this. So for
Sure.
people out there using an interface to record their audio, okay.
Hmm.
So if the plan, and now this is what I'm doing, just so we can, and I'll try to make it quick on it. I'm just recording everything here,
Hmm.
exporting stems, sending it. They mix and master it, and it comes back to me, and I'm done. Okay. So I've been
Beautiful.
doing that for the
Yeah.
last couple. This
Yeah.
next record that's coming out is the second one that I've done that way. I preferred already, just
Yeah.
because it's made me more happy as a person. It's made me more confident in the product, not being like, or I could be one of two things: over analytical about myself, or just being like,
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
even care. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have both those things going on, because I'm like, some of my favorite albums are the worst sounding shit in the world. Doesn't matter. The song is everything.
If I can,
So
that's the key. I think the main point for a takeaway, especially if someone's a musician watching this and like just wanting to know how to do something more than be a local band. Really, the song is everything, and if you can write a song that resonates in like whatever particular, genre or like kind of band that you're doing. Like the song is everything, even if the recording is subpar. Like I we can all think of albums that we love, right? Like that I just the first thing that comes to mind is there's a lot of that like Swedish melodic death metal, like that Gothenburg stuff,
Sure. Oh
or like
yeah, yeah.
hypocrisy, or like dude, what I've heard some interviews with the people that made those records, and you would not believe like some of the like DIY, like just like yeah, we got like two microphones on the drum set, and like so it doesn't matter. Like some of people's favorite records, that pat tons of people love it. It's like legendary. Were made like with by a shoestring and just pure desperation. You know what I mean? Like you don't need to
Yeah.
have everything in order to start off with. It's the songwriting, but it's also one thing that you would say to me. I can't remember when you told me this, but it stuck with me and I loved it. It was just like, dude, just get it done. Like just do it. Just finish the thing, get it done. And that really is like talk about like you're too over analytical. Like you'll never finish
You're
anything or
never
get anything
done.
out. But like
You're never
it's like
done.
you're
You're
never
never
done
done,
ever. Yeah.
dude. It's never
And
done.
so sometimes you just have to use what you have. Like that process. It's like there's three different skills. There's the being able to play music and play your instrument or whatever it is. Being able to write songs, totally different skill, and another. It's like another part of your brain, your songwriting and all of that. And then the recording process is its whole own thing. So you're really I mean, and this is why we have, mixing engineer or traditionally a mixing engineer or like a producer to help write songs and like in other that's not like the metal world, metal rock world that are it's kind of DIY like what you and I are doing. That's why you have all these roles, right? Because
Sure.
it's hard to do everything yourself, and that's awesome that you get to send off your stems, man. Like I would love to do that because like right now I just barely finished mixing the Savage Oath LP or long
Yeah.
play, and it's in mastering right now. But man, that thing like it's actually mixing your own stuff. Like the EP that we had released in 2023, that
Yeah.
was just two
Yeah.
songs. It took me like 3 months to mix those songs, right? Because I'm like learning, and I'm like, oh, is
Yeah,
this good enough
dude.
yet? Like I gotta fix this, fix that, and then we're doing it's like the album's gonna be 7 tracks, and like, man, that was something else. Getting all like editing the drums for all of those things. Like we could go on about like how miserable mixing is, but it's it's important and it's good to know that you can do it, right? But yeah, I get for your own sanity if you can have someone else mix it. That's where you want to be. Yeah, it was good though. Yeah.
I graduated the bedroom
Hmm,
level of
hmm. Yeah.
different, levels of stuff. I'm at some level. I would never call myself a Butch Vig or any like because
Well.
I'm not because I'm
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
there touring,
Yep.
playing, and doing so much more.
Ju-
Like I was never gonna be that. It
mhm,
was like out of necessity at the
mhm,
time, and like it was financial because I needed to be able to afford my house, and going into a studio with like how I do things would have cost 20 or 30 thousand dollars. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I take my fucking precious time. People think I'm moving fast, but like I'm not. If they like earlier today, I was just sorting riffs, like the tape. Like, oh my
Hmm.
god, dude. I'm like, it's fucking insane. So I should hire somebody to archive this because
Yep.
I'm just like,
Yep.
go through and do this because like it
Yeah.
takes my whole fucking day. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. But learning how to mix and master in my songwriting has been
Hmm.
great because when I
Yeah.
go and listen to it, I'm like, I could look at it differently.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
hear things that need to
Hmm.
be changed because like there's more clarity as to where if you don't know what you're
Yeah.
doing and it's like muddy or whatever, you can't hear
Hmm.
separation, it never really sounds great,
Well.
so it's like I do love I do love my demo recordings, man. They
Yeah.
sound really
Mhm.
good right now. Like I've been recording some and like I'm like, man, these sound better than all the albums
Yeah,
I did.
yeah.
I wish I could go back and apply that, but
Nope.
I and you know, and just because like nobody's gonna really hear all what I've how much I've grown,
Mm-mm.
you know,
Mhm.
because it's I'm mixing and mastering it just to listen, you know.
Yep.
I've taken my
Mhm.
walk. But anyway, somebody was saying, is okay, is mastering an album a must and why and why not? It's an absolute must, period, because it adds width, it adds volume, it
Mhm.
adds
Mhm.
everything, it adds low end, it adds high end shimmer. I
Mhm.
can't even begin to, you know, it'll make a junk recording sound much better, period.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it just makes it sound better. So, you know, and there it's so like I said, I think like Landar still exists. There's software. I use Ozone. I
Mhm.
think it's like it's not cheap. I mean, so if you're not willing
Mhm.
to dish out like $500, don't even bother even looking
Yeah.
at it. So it's
Mhm.
like, you know, but Ozone is fantastic. It's artificial intelligence. It actually press play and it just maps your song out for you.
Mhm.
And it's
It
just like sounds
it, like,
amazing. I'm
it
like, holy
balances
shit.
EQ and stuff.
It does all of
Yeah.
it, dude. And
Yeah.
it's like if I showed it to somebody, it's really impressive. All of the parameters that it does, dynamic EQ. So like on certain
Mhm. Yep.
so that dynamic is fucking
Yep.
phenomenal. And it has a stereo imager as well. So you can like widen the
Mhm.
image, which is something that everybody should probably at least know about is like any imaging you want that because like there's this you know it's like this it's your stereo sound
Yep.
here so you have the middle right there and then you have the
Yep.
left and right so you got center left
Yep.
right and if you don't have if you don't have sound going on to all those areas, your recording's really thin and weak, and it'll look like a little arrow going up. I've seen it so many times that
Mhm.
I've had people send me their recordings. You know, I'm gonna help them out and mix and master stuff for like
Mhm.
free because they're homies, and
Mhm.
they'll send me their shit, and it's like a little spike, and you're like,
It's
bro,
because they just panned at center or something like that?
well,
Or
no,
it's a
it's just not a really it wasn't recorded well, is what
right,
that
yeah.
generally means. So it's like it doesn't have like it doesn't have low end because like
Yeah.
at the bottom is like the low end and then
Yeah, yeah.
at the height is all the high end shit
Right.
and that's usually you know you can see that hit side to side but it's the low end and the mids that really need to kind of
Mhm.
fill out that void but
Mhm.
you know I would never say that I know it all. I found as I went into that world it's like you could just go so deep and it
Oh,
you
yeah.
know
Uh
I'm just glad that one of I have a couple buddies that live out with my homie Darren, dude. You'll love him. He's the best. And I was just like, all right. And so I finally kind of just gave in and was like, all right, I'm gonna just send this to this dude and see
mhm.
what he does.
Mhm.
He sent it back to me, and I knew at that point in time I had found the person that I was
Yeah.
meant to do this thing with.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And just because like I mean, especially after hearing Dreamers, I like my album, the first single comes out this coming up Bandcamp Friday. And just all this the what he was able to do with what I gave him
Mhm.
I was just like, I must have recorded this pretty good because it sounds. I was actually putting it up, and I'm slightly competitive, man.
Mhm.
I live in this world. We live in this world where you know there's always somebody you know trying to take the spots, or you know everybody
Mhm.
wants their moment.
Yep. Yep.
And I was going across and nothing against any of these bands. They have great recordings and everything, but I wanted to hear what our mix on YouTube sounded like versus all the stuff that No Remorse has put out in the last like month.
Mhm.
And dude, I mean, like the sonic fucking shit that I mean, like nobody's touching that. Like he might be the best. actually highly suggest him for
Okay.
you as well because I think he could take you guys to. I mean, it's incredible. I'll send you the album later, and you could
Would
hear
love to.
his
Yeah.
work with what he did. He did a great job on my vocals. I was so thoroughly impressed. I was impressed with Golden Arm, but with this one, I paid him more. So I mean, like, I'll be real. I just paid him more
Mhm.
money to work on it
Mhm.
longer. I was like, I was like, how much do you need to make it sound like the best thing I've ever
Yeah.
done?
Yeah. Well,
You know,
I
and you go
I
off that.
think there's a really important point to bring up here where, like, it's partly because of your experience already DIY doing mixing that you kind of get some of it, and that's why I recommend it for everybody. You get some understanding of what it's like to put a riff or like a song that you think sounds good into a computer and be like, "Oh, this didn't sound like what I thought," or like, okay, now
Yeah.
I kind of understand how to make it where I want it to go. But then when you finally get the chance to work with somebody, because like we're musicians, guitar player, songwriter, performers. That's kind of what what we learned and what we wanted to do. It's what a lot of people want to do. But there are some people whose their path specifically is to be amazing, like take it to an art form beyond belief, just mixing and making that sound like audio engineering, right? It's the more I learn about it, the more respect for those guys I have because it's like, wow, dude. Like some people, like your guy here that you're talking about, I'd love to, you know,
Yeah.
send him stems or something
Darren
one day because
Trentikoff.
like that's an amazing uh thing to have. But like you can kind of see how like there's a progression to get there. Like the
Oh yeah.
DIY experiences kind of help you understand like, wow, this is a guy I'm going to work with, and like I trust him to do it. And it also helps you find the right person because like how many this common experience, you go into a studio your first time, you don't know anything, first time recording, you record your songs, you get back and you're just kind of not as happy as you'd like to be with the
Oh,
mixes or
it's
whatever.
awful. It's awful. That's
That's
why I started doing
yeah,
this
yeah, and,
because I could never afford
yeah,
how
yeah.
much it would time it would actually
Oh
probably
yeah,
take. You're like, oh, I got to go back.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
You
But I
know?
mean, like that's just it's like I think starting DIY, everything's the right way to go, and then when you finally do meet somebody that's really skilled and like that you can collect, because really what you're talking about is a collaboration. You're
Yeah.
not just like, hey, you do this thing, like mix my album, make it perfect first time, and like we don't have a relationship there or like anyway. But like it's the more you know, the better you are to almost like delegate those jobs because you've done it yourself so many times. And like, no, yeah, that'd be great, dude. After this experience of mixing, and I use Reaper, right, the free program for
Yeah.
PC, because
Yeah.
like yeah, if you're a PC user, you're either paying for Pro Tools or, which is fine, but if you can't afford anything like me, like you, I'd say Reaper's a good resource to use. And like, we can talk about like specific software or whatnot, but essentially, like, I we recorded this album, and like I was mixing it, learning how to mix it all myself and do that stuff, and it's been great. But like I can already see like, yeah, I'd be so much happier having somebody else I could just send it to and like know, because it's part of the process, right?
Yeah.
It's like
I
you can
mean,
mix it, and I know what I'm going to get
the,
from it. Like,
the difficult thing, see, here's the thing though. The difficult thing about that is to get that dude that's like so much better than
yeah,
you
yeah.
is expensive.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's not
Yeah.
cheap. And I'm like, well, if I told people what it costs to do you're basically, if you want the best, you're gonna pay like $1,000 plus
Hmm.
a song,
Hmm. Hmm.
plain and simple.
Yeah.
And but you get what you pay for,
Yeah. And it's the
you
time.
know.
It's the time, man.
And
Like,
and again, like I said, like going and listening to the difference of where Haunt was and then everybody else that
mhm.
is releasing videos through that label. um the songs, I really like the bands that like I really love No Remorse. Nothing, I'm not even, this isn't negative.
No, no, no. Yeah.
A this is just analyzing something just sonically. I'm not
Yeah.
that's it. This is only about sonics. I could just hear a sonic difference
Yeah.
just because, you know. Um and it is kind of interesting to have come from like the total bedroom band to
Mhm.
having a much larger space like I have
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
But you know, so what I want, like, what Visigoth? You guys like went in the studio and you guys had the same guy do both your records,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was dude, it was like everything I talked about, a learning experience, and, like, so the guy that, mixed and recorded the Visigoth records, Andy Patterson, who, he played for a long time in a band called Sub Rosa, and now he's playing in the Odalith,
Yeah,
he's a
dude.
drummer. Yeah. No,
Oh, I
I
know
lo
Sub Rosa, dude.
yeah, you know Sub Rosa? Yeah.
We were like kind of in that they're kind of in the stoner genre
Yeah,
area.
yeah. So
Dune.
he's the drummer, and Andy, he reminds me a lot like you, like somebody that he got into recording and stuff like kind of DIY, and he co-owns a studio here in Salt Lake, which is great. I went and recorded the Savage Oath drums with him actually recently for that, and so yeah, we went in there both times for the Visigoth records, and it was a learning experience because like prior to that, uh, I'd always just home recorded, DIY'd everything, and
Yeah,
like you get used the one you get the demo itis, right? Like you get used to how your demos sound, and then you go into a studio and like, ultimately like I'm happy with how the results we got out of those, but like
yeah,
it's different than like I would say that like and I want to say this in a way that's not like not knocking Andy or something like that, but like what the Visigoth mixes we got back, it's like okay, like we could accept these, but like I've always felt like man, it like I kind of wish it would sounded like a little bit like this guy did, or like someone that was a little more like into that genre of like classic heavy metal, or I guess like the epic traditional metal kind of niche that Visigoth's in.
sure.
But the thing is, like you're saying about cost too, like Andy, he's really good at what he does as far as like a recording engineer and stuff, and he can do mixing. But like when you get someone that's like a really talented mixing engineer for a certain kind of music, man, that's why it's so expensive too, because you're paying them for their expertise, and like they can get
Yeah,
that thing to sound like nothing else. And like but being able to work with like let's say the perfect mixing engineer for your band, if you can, you're very very lucky, but sometimes that's not always possible. And like so we work with Andy because he's here in Salt Lake, and at least as far as like mixing engineers and for metal and stuff in here in Salt Lake, he's the guy that we know, so that's who we went with. And it was just also like what was in our budget too, honestly. So you have to do what you have to do what you have to do to get it made. So oh, he did, dude. Like Jake's vocals, and here's another thing,
yeah,
specifically with Visigoth, or if like you're in a very vocal driven genre of music, which most genres are, but like especially traditional metal or like epic heavy metal, like really vocals are king, and you can't forget that. Like, and what Andy made Jake sound amazing vocally. We I That's one of the best parts about that mix, like the vocals and the drums. I'm a guitar player, so of course I'm like, I wish my guitar sound was a little heavier or whatnot. There's always something to pick apart. Uh, but ultimately, yeah, no, they sound really good, and I say it's extremely important. Like if you're writing and recording vocal driven music, like you want your vocals to be the centerpiece.
yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
so
I think the thing that's really great about the Visigoth records though too is the backing vocals when the choruses come in, the big
oh
chanty,
yeah,
like heavy
yeah,
licks that you guys do. I think that really sets you guys apart. um, because I'm gonna say something right now, and I could be shooting myself in the foot because
go ahead.
I just come from an era where I'm getting much older now. I'm in my I'm three this year.
Hmm. Hmm.
The current new wave of traditional heavy metal thing going on right now. I just think there's Visigoth, and then all the bands trying doing the same thing as Visigoth, and that's
No.
where my brain goes right now. And again, this is not a bad thing because I love your band because I've been a Visigoth supporter since the fucking moment I met you.
Hmm.
Basically, I already knew songs before that, but like meeting you guys and then, like having that connection, we both were playing Frost and Fire and whatnot and all that shit.
Mhm.
That just bonded it even deeper. And like you could ask Christian, we were singing along, like all the Conquerors. Oh shit, we were pumped
Mhm.
on that. That was a good year. 2018 was solid as fuck.
Mhm.
So, um, but I just see, I see how it was for me in the doom metal, stuff.
Yeah.
It's very similar because there's just these really quick trends because of the internet. It's not like
Yeah.
the like early 2000s when I was playing music where everything happened much slower and there wasn't as many resources and you
Mhm.
still had to do a lot of stuff by phone calls
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
bookyourownfuckinglife.com. I can't tell you how many times I used bookyourownfuckinglife.com. Have you ever heard of that?
No, what is this? What's this
Well,
thing?
I'm from the my roots are in punk rock music
Yeah.
mainly. My first bands were punk,
Mhm.
and it was a website like, dude, I'm talking in the stone ages of computers for our generation of people.
Mhm.
It just was a list of all the cities and states in the United States. It
Oh,
had a
wow.
link, had their phone number and email address on it of people that did DIY shows.
Mhm.
And so we would utilize that. Like, you know, when I was younger, we'd go, oh, dude, let's do an out of town show. We had a shitty van. It was insane. But
Yeah.
we would drive this thing. We would meet. I remember one time specifically because we almost died. Um, we hit up this person in San Luis Obispo, which is an awesome like coastal town in
Mhm.
Central California. It's
Mhm.
beautiful. It's by a couple famous spots. Pismo Beach. Everybody knows Pismo. So and it's also next to Morro Bay, which is another like California beautiful coastal town. And anyway, so we're all pumped up. We're driving from Stockton. We're from this fucking shitty Central Valley,
Mhm.
and we're driving this old Ford, dude. And dude, the fucking steering wheel, it wasn't even connected. And we're going
Jesus.
down the road. He's like holding it. It was insane. I thought we were going off a cliff. And we
Jesus,
took
dude.
off the cover, and like the screws were like out. Like it was
Dude.
like a fucking
Oh,
insane moment. But book your own fucking life. Things were like I'm just saying, like times, the way how quickly the trends and scenes go, because you see now something done. You're like, oh, they're doing it. Let's go. I want to do it. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And it
Yeah, yeah.
and it just and it just spawns this like huge thing. And I just feel like Visigoth. I mean, honestly, you guys are like the top tier for me.
Oh,
Um,
wow,
and
thanks.
and then like obviously Eternal Champions in there with that. Like those two bands for that
Mhm.
thing where it's blades of steel fucking going into battle,
Mhm. Mhm.
riding your horse or whatever the
Yep.
fuck,
Yep.
that shit, like that's where it ends for me. Everybody else's, I'm just like, it's like it's good, but like I want to hear something a little different. And that's where
Mhm.
I really like bands like Satan with
Mhm.
Brian Ross. And then, I love, I'm like really good friends with Jarvis Leatherby. So Night
Yep.
Demon is a
Mhm.
big part of it. I like that, they're just so much different, like
Yeah. Yeah, it's different.
it just gives a totally different experience within the same genres. And I could go down there's Spell from Canada that has a very unique style of metal. And then
Yep.
obviously in England, like I feel like Seven Sisters is a one of those bands that's really up there in my personal opinion. Unto
Yeah.
Others in Portland.
Mhm.
There's like a and then not to like toot my own horn, but like Haunt, I definitely feel like of our own as well.
Yeah.
So and don't fit into that exactly. So it's do you ever think about that? Like do you ever like look and go, man, there's a lot of like epic metal bands
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about
Yeah,
swords
I
and
mean, it's
steel.
like Visigoth, kind of like the origin point was, so it was I'd become friends with Jake. In like we were in a previous band that didn't go anywhere. Where like Jake was also on guitar, and he came to me and he was like, he's like, Haley, I want to do a band with you, like, but I want to sing. And again, Jake is an amazing singer. Okay, like
Yeah, I love it.
there are just some people in this world that like Jake. I'm super lucky to know him that just have that natural vocal talent, right? Which is really kind of the
It's his
why
tone, man. It's his
it's
vocal
tone.
tone.
Some people just have, and
Tone,
he's
dude.
very skilled. But like the reason I'm talking about Jake's voice is because like that's why Visigoth's music works really well. And so our origin point, I was always into like power metal and like heavy power metal type stuff, And I just liked it. I like how like powerful the vocals sounded. Like there's a band, Dream Evil, which was kind of what we sort and like or like Grand Magus, for example, not exactly
Hmm.
power metal, but it's like it's really down tuned. Visigoth plays in B standard, and we
Yeah.
we wanted that really like heavy guitar sound, but still be like epic and have clean singing, and really focus on. So from the very beginning, the focus for Visigoth was catchy choruses, be really heavy, and kind of get that epic melodic thing. But mostly it was like we just looked
Nailed.
for yeah, dude,
Nailed
we
it.
well,
Nailed.
but like that was really the goal. It's like we kind of know where we want to go sonically, but the most important thing is like we want the songs to be like songs that we would want to see live, like or sing along with, right?
Yeah.
Like anthemic.
Yeah.
And so we started with that in mind, and we went from there and found it. I think someone had a question on here of like how to find your own style, right? Which is like kind of
Yeah.
the perennial most difficult question to figure out, and like you want it
Oh my
you
God, dude.
you you want an easy answer to that, but like it's some combination of like you have to know what really resonates in here when you're listening to music. Like what makes you feel something, like what do you have an emotional connection to, right? And you understand that, and then you have to somehow bring that inspiration into your own playing and your own songwriting to where it's like you're expressing something that you would also want to see, like, and you have to trust that, which is hard because sometimes people I think get a little too focused on like, well, what are these guys doing? Like, how do these guys write music? Like, I need to sound like them, or I need that song or this part to sound exactly like this band or whatever. And I say just forget about all of that. Like,
Yeah,
don't come
definitely don't go down
I,
that road.
I,
I agree 100%.
and it's
Don't do
tempting
that.
because you can look for guidance, and you can look for inspiration, but you really have to. It's kind of like a self trusting discovery thing to find your style, right? And
Yeah.
also, like if you're a singer or yourself, or if you know a singer too, and you're gonna do music that's, for lack of a better word, like a pop structure. It's going to have choruses. It's going to have a verse. It's not like experimental, super progressive. You're going to want your song, whatever it is, whatever genre, to really make sense with the vocalist, right? So like, if
Yeah.
your vocalist can do really epic, powerful stuff like Jake was able to do, then like Visigoth works, right? But if your vocalist is different, like maybe the tonality of his voice is just maybe a different style than what you're trying. Like you can also try to match the style of what you're playing and your songs to the vocal like ability and or just vocal tone too. Like that's a huge part, and it's so important because if someone's listening to music, maybe they're a musician, maybe not. The first thing they're going to latch onto is it's either going to be like what the vocals are doing and or like guitars or drums and that stuff too if they're musicians. But like uh, that's maybe the best bit of advice in finding style I can find is like you got to think of like what serves the song, like how are you writing music, right? And I think where bands tend to fall flat, at least like you asked me if I think about all the other epic metal bands, and like I do like to check them out and like listen to them, of course, like I love that music, but sometimes let's say I just talk more pulled back in general. I think sometimes you can tell what a band is going for, but there's some element of it that's it's not quite sticking the landing. And a lot of the time that singing or finding where your vocalist shines is really the most difficult spot, or like getting a chorus
Dude,
too. Good
I,
choruses are difficult too. You know.
I'm on this trip where this like a very important thing for me, like if you want like when I'm like listening to a band and I want to fall in love with the
Yeah.
band. I want to like I don't want to just like a band. I want to fall in love with a
Mm.
band when I listen to them. And what makes me fall in love with bands is lyrics.
That's important
And
too. Yeah.
this genre really gets spread
Hmm.
thin because there's a lot of topics
Hmm.
realized and just straight at it. They don't even want to live in between
Hmm.
any of it.
Hmm.
And you know, I like a much like deeper lyric sometimes, like really always resonated really, really well to like a band like Thin
Hmm.
Lizzy because it was just like he just hit every spot,
Yeah.
all of it,
Yeah.
from this to love to party to, you know, biblical,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
like he just there's just it's such a great thing. And I feel like a lot of people are limiting
Hmm.
their like poetry
Yeah.
because like I look at that as like there's more of a poem
Hmm.
than it is a story
Hmm.
where it's like, you're just, and sometimes I'm just like, what the fuck does all this shit mean? I'm like, I almost want him to be like, yo, can we get in the right fucking like era of time?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
2024. We are going into artificial intelligence war. Like we
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
we're in a completely, like swords and shit, it's cool, but nobody like it's very fantasy, very Dungeons and Dragons and all
Hmm.
that sort of thing. And like I said, like that shit is all great. Like there's so many bands that, from Hammerfall to Blind Guardian to the champion. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you could do the same with black metal with
Hmm.
Immortal and all that. You could go down every everything, but the one thing I fear, it just sucks. It's just I've seen the scenes change.
Hmm.
When you get older, we watch them. The
Hmm.
strong will survive. That
Hmm.
is for certain about those kind of things. There's always like a underground for it, and
Hmm.
they're not in the
Hmm.
mainstream's eyes. They're not being brainwashed with
Hmm.
it. You know,
Yeah.
it's outside of those areas. So, to ever, there is something to all that about how it lives on, but in doom metal, I just watched this influx of labels and bands emerge to where it was
Yeah.
like, all right, well, I can't keep track anymore. There's nothing special about it anymore. It's not down
Hmm.
to a handful of bands that you just fucking fall in love again.
Hmm.
You fall in love with,
Hmm.
it's like, so luckily most of my friends have bands that I've fallen in love with. So it's like I don't have to worry, about being like anybody being like, oh fucking Trevor, man. But like no, like I'm a big supporter of the underground. Like I help put tours together. I started doing a
Hmm.
festival and I record bands for like nothing in here. Just
Hmm. Hmm.
but
Hmm.
it's I'm stoked we're in this era. So let's talk about real quickly for a
Okay.
little bit
Yep.
here, just so we can talk about it. I'm curious of because I didn't even know like the album was done. Being um, you introduced me to Phil,
Hmm. Hmm.
and dude,
Dude.
I mean me and that guy's relationship. He's like he's the guy that does the haunt
It
t-shirts.
it makes me so happy that that I was able to work out and that like because I had met Phil and I'm like, oh man, I what do I say about Phil? Like such a crazy hardworking dude and like he's amazing bass player by the way. Made the best like I don't know. It's been so interesting. Like we can talk about Savage Oath, but like collaborating with him, like, 'cause, you know, there's kind of a cliche with bands where it's like your guitarist is writing the stuff, and then like they just kind of show the bass player what to play. But Phil really like is passionate about his instrument, and like he'll just write his own stuff, which is so cool. You know, like I don't. It's sort of a different anyway, but I'm getting distracted on that. Yeah, like I introduced you to Phil, and like it's so cool that he's doing like the haunt stuff, and that you guys
Yeah.
hit off like that. But like that to me is, I
He's the
mean,
greatest dude.
yeah,
He
so,
really is. Like I loved him the second. I think I met him at Hell's Heroes,
yep.
right?
That's where I was like,
And
you
you
got to
guys
meet Trevor.
we're all hanging out, and you're
Yeah,
like, "This is my good friend Phil,"
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's just weird that it from that point and like he saved my ass, dude. We had a big
Hmm.
fucking merchandise
Hmm.
emergency on the Hell's Decibels tour with Night Demon and Satan across America. Like
Hmm.
our merch didn't get here,
Oh yeah, man.
and like it was all fucking stuck in this postal system being rerouted and all like I don't even know what happened. It's a long story. I mean, it was a bad first couple of weeks for me, but Phil saved the day. Like he fucking literally had shirts. Like he probably didn't sleep, man. He probably didn't sleep to get
I don't
that
know
done.
how he does it.
And
He should.
he brought him to the show and just saved the tour.
Mhm. Yeah,
And and ever since that, I was like, dude, I will like, you're my guy until you quit.
yeah.
Like that's where it's at this
he,
point.
he,
I'm like,
he
I hope you guys become huge rock stars and super successful. But then
right.
I'm like, well, who's gonna print my shirts now?
Right.
But
He needs an employee is what he needs. Yeah. Phil is great at what he does. And while we're talking about him and Savage, so what Savage Oath is at least with my relation to it, it's Phil who used to he used to be the bass player in Manila Road right before for a year or two before Mark the Shark died. um, he joined, and before that, I think he was printing merch for them and doing. He'd been into doing bands and printing merch for a long time prior to that, and he had made yeah
yeah,
Wichita,
Wichita,
Kansas,
dude,
and so
Wichita.
that's how he
Yeah,
knew the guys that joined Manila Road, and then got into this whole world. And the way I met him was through my friend Carlos, who used to play guitar in Eternal Champion. You know how it's everything
yeah,
is just intersected, right? And for a while, Carlos and Phil were writing music together, just like sending cell phone videos back and forth, right? Because they were like, we want to do something, because we're not playing in bands right now. And Carlos got the idea to reach out to Jessica, my girlfriend, and ask her like, "Oh, do you think Lee would want to?" And I'd met Carlos at the first Hell's Heroes and become friends with him. Great, super great guy. Love Carlos, and like he had basically just asked to see if I was interested in like I don't know contributing with them, right? And I said like I was interested. And I was like, hey, you guys have some music here. Like, do you mind if I get to like play the producer role and like do the recording and like kind of help you pull the songs together? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And so I'd kind of in my head, planned on like, well, I'm really good. Like where I feel like my talent lies is in like being able to record myself and like get song structures together, because I do that work in Visigoth as well, like songwriting or riff writing, that kind of thing. And with Savage Oath, I'm like, let's just see where it goes. And it basically went from just being like I would put together the demos on Reaper, like scratch tracks. I'd bring in like Phil and Carlos's ideas, and then we would start to collaborate through basically email file sharing, recording ourselves at home and sending files. And everything about this, it shouldn't have worked, but I kind of just ended up doing that. And so we've been working on it for I think like 5 years now. These songs, like it's been a little bit of a slower process because it's all remote, right? It's not like a typical band where you're
Yeah.
there or like, and we it really think things really kicked off when you know, again, it's that crucial moment, like who's going to be the singer in this, like or you know, the vocalist, right? And then we had a bunch of, you know, different ideas, like maybe who we could ask, and like, you know, I didn't want it to be basically a Visigoth 2.0 because I already play in Visigoth, right? So I'm like, well, let's do something like, let's
Yeah.
try to make this like how, you know, like its own unique sound, which I think it is. And Phil knew, or he had met Brendan Radigan once, that, you know, who's singing for Sumerlands now, and of course he's singing Pagan Altar, and like he's in so much stuff. And he's like, well, maybe I'll ask him. And we're like, really?
I would say that
Like,
his
it's great.
most
Yeah.
popular band back then was Magic
Or
Circle.
Magic, yeah, that too. I mean, he's been in so many bands. Dude, I can't
That's
keep track
how
of it.
I heard of him. I mean,
Yeah,
that was like, so I already knew that that dude existed before the pagan
yeah,
altar stuff. But yeah,
yeah, um, and so we reached out to him, and he said he was interested, and we're like, okay, well, let's like we have this song that we send it off to him, like just do, you know, really whatever you want with it. And you know, Brendan, man, he is incredibly talented. You would never admit it, but he's an incredibly skilled musician, and with literally no direction from any of us, he you know, he recorded On We March and Warlock's Trance, the demo or the EP that's out for Savage Oath right now. He just came up with the vocal lines, the lyrics all himself, and just sent it back. He's like, "Oh, is this even good?" And we're like, "Dude, this is amazing!" And like, it shouldn't work. Like, it's like there's no guarantee any of this would be good, right?
yeah,
But what Savage Oath really is like, you know, it's kind of, it's all an experiment because we're all remote, and I know some bands do like remote recording these days now, and they pull it off, and we're like, well, you know, we all have focus rights, we can all record ourselves, like let's try to actually put something together. And again, it comes back to what we were talking about, like the just being able to make the recording really is, that's like the crucible, right? That's the thing that you have to do. And what we were getting, and you know, we released those two songs, but we have a whole album that's done and getting
sure.
mastered right now. Uh, we were just so thrilled, like how good the songs were coming out. And the thing with Savage Oath is that, like, you know, where Visigoth is like, this was all of our kind of like first real semi-pro to pro band that we were in. In Savage Oath,
Yeah,
all of us have experience from tons of other bands. So it's a bunch of, we're all seasoned, right? Equally seasoned. And that makes it really different, a totally
yeah,
different experience. And like, um, I would say it's the first time where like I've experienced like a really kind of like a round table collaboration in that way, which is so weird that it works, but I think it works almost better because we are separated by like states across the country, that it's like, well, here's what we've got so far, like you contribute your thing to it, and then we just, you know, the challenge is like whatever it is, like we'll find a way to make it work. And so far it's, I mean, it's been great and super rewarding, and it's like just a creative like experiment. But
I'm excited. I'm
dude,
excited to hear the album, man. Like,
I'm really excited
are
to
you
hear what you
guys
think. Yeah.
going the DIY route with that, or did you guys sign with the label or any of that stuff?
Oh no, man, all DIY. So like talking to you was a big inspiration for me personally, just in kind of like, because you and I have had many conversations about labels and like how we feel about them, and you know, they
Yeah,
ultimately, like, they do really help put, like, if you're not known for anything before and you do get your music on a label, that does, it sort of changes the frame of reference. You're no longer this unknown person or whatever, and like having a label behind you is important to, I guess, become known, right? To have a name associated with you, right?
yeah,
But yeah, with Savage Oath, like, it's, we were just like, well, you know what? Like, we really believe in just like the how good the songs are, the quality and everything. And we're like, we're DIYing everything anyways. So I think the inspiration was really to like, we're gonna self release it, or but if a label wants to, you know, also be able to sell copies, they can, you know, basically license them from us or whatnot, you
yeah.
know, to have as well. But we're not signing a label deal
For some
because
licensing deals, right?
I felt we had the ability to do everything ourselves, from the recording to the mixing. We're having somebody else master it. We're going to go with Dan Swano again, who's been delightful to work with, who did the EP. And then as far as like getting the record pressed and like made and stuff, well, our friend Phil, you know, he's had prior experience not just making merch, but also just doing things like making a tape, like pressing a vinyl. And so with those with his experience, really, we're kind of just going the route like, let's do it ourselves. Let's see how it's received and how it does. And if it makes any money, like it's a and in my perspective, it's a success. And so I'm really excited because,
Yeah.
you know, like again, there's no guarantees in any of this, right? And like you know, I know labels have more resources than just, you know, a group of guys to promote something. But I think what we're trying to do is have Savage Oath be something that's special that we own 100% and kind of can call the shots on what we want to do with it. And that's really been the most exciting thing for me with Savage Oath, and it's made me very passionate. We're gonna play our first show here coming up, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like doing an Olympic high dive into a shallow pool. You know, you don't really know how it's gonna go, but
I
you know,
mean,
we're
it'll be awesome, dude. I mean,
dude, it'll go.
it'll be good, dude. There's
Yeah, yeah.
no, it's not a matter of any, like, you can't even like go into it and thinking if is it going to be good or bad, because even
Oh, it's just
and going up
yeah,
in the first time any of your bands first got stage for the film.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I feel like it's just the same thing as long as you guys are all prepared as far as knowing how to play your
yeah. That
parts,
and
knowing the song.
exactly, exactly, and that's and so we are that way. So we're gonna have rehearsal before that show goes down. It's just it's different than like
We were
Visigoth.
talking about professionals. That we were
Yep.
talking about professionals. That separates the men from the boys right
Hmm.
there when you're on the
Hmm.
level where you don't even have a band practice and you could get together and it sound like you guys had already been practicing together.
Exactly, exactly. So that this is going to be my first experience trying to pull this off. I think we can do it. I think we can do it. It's going to be really cool, and like you know, it's been kind of an opportunity for me personally. Which I mean, you know me. It's not like I again, like you were saying at the start of this. It's not like I'm known publicly yeah, or known, I guess, on the internet as like a persona entity or whatever. Like, what is it that I do? But I felt like Savage Oath was an opportunity for me to really like spread my wings, especially like with uh, you know songwriting and the recording and like the mixing, because I always felt like I could do a good job with mixing. You know, and again, those experiences in studio with Visigoth and being like, you know, it's good, but it's not exactly how like I'd want it to be. Maybe I want to try my hand at this someday. And this was kind of an opportunity to, at least for me personally. And then what we ended up with was so beyond our expectations. We're so thrilled about it that you know we're gonna see where it takes us. You know, um,
Yeah, I mean,
so
there's so many things about how things can be done this day and age, because I feel like you can start a band over the internet and almost take it onto a festival or a tour if you already have established musicians
yeah,
involved. You know, it
yep,
really does help because, like, I saw that transition from Beastmaker to Haunt, like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, because like people already knew me from Beastmaker. It was so much easier. Just like when Haunt started, it wasn't. It was just like, oh, here's a record deal, like,
hmm,
things like that. Like, they're all like indie labels, but like still, it's people had like interest where it was like before. It's like, how do you even
yeah.
do this? How do you even get to this point
I think yeah,
where somebody would want to sign your band to
right,
it just being like, here you go? But it definitely helped because I mean, I like I said, I just got off some big tours and like Beastmaker was doing, this weekend, I'm getting on a plane on Saturday and flying to do a festival in Las Vegas as Beastmaker and coming back that
yeah,
same fucking day, basically. So, it's kind of crazy, you know, to have these two things. I can't really do both. Like, it's
yeah,
really, you're gonna find at some point where there's gonna be a challenge of having the multiple thing going on, because it's just like
hmm,
in life being pulled in different directions. It's a big challenge, and I mean, I
yeah,
wish you all the best with that, because I know firsthand that does at some point you're like, oh, because like Haunt literally killed Beastmaker. Like
Mhm.
it literally
Mhm.
annihilated me
Yeah.
even thinking about it because of I just felt a lot more free with what
Yeah.
I was doing
Yeah.
because I didn't want there to be like rules of what I was doing.
Mhm.
And in doom metal, dude, just going 30 beats per minute faster, you're no longer a doom metal band.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that's my perception of doom metal is like it's meant to be slow, like, and I always looked at movies like Tombs of the Blind Dead or how, creatures of doom, how they move, it's always
Right.
slow. They always get you though. They always they'll cut your head off, dude. It's like they're slow, but so we always were like doom is slow. Like we don't play fast. This is doom metal. So we did attempt to try to like have songs faster, but like as soon as we started doing that, I was already like writing other stuff, going back to my more melodic punk days, like the Southern California influenced punk
Mhm.
music, the Bay Area punk music, which is just a little bit more melodic. And just it was realistically it was just the chord arrangement. It's just a different style.
Yeah.
And where like Beastmaker, it's all like this diminished, just like the song Black Sabbath. It's all the
Mm.
diminished notes, and then it to go to like the harmonic minor notes of like a band like Pennywise, Bad Religion, two bands I looked up to a lot in the 90s. I had to I had to grow up in the 1990s era where it was like it wasn't it was hard to find stuff. Metal was kind of like had been killed by Nirvana,
Mhm.
like metal was no longer cool. It was no longer the mainstream thing. You couldn't have big hair anymore. You had to get a flat iron. Like
Yeah.
shit shit just evolved into something else. But it was rad to see Metallica and like Guns N' Roses kind of meld at that time. Those are two bands I really liked. Um, but when I found punk rock music, I really loved bands like Bad Religion. I like the politically they're enlightened. They knew things. They were thinkers. There was like a lyrical thing. There was a theme. I just was like, dude, this is, and maybe that's why I'm so different in the new wave of traditional heavy metal world is because I come from a punk
Mhm.
world, but I learned to play guitar from heavy
Mhm.
metal. Like I learned to play guitar to Kill 'Em All,
Yeah,
Ride the
yeah.
Lightning, thrash stuff, and then the Megadeth stuff, and then to Black Sabbath, I just things just, but with punk, there's just so many bands that I looked up to. The Clash, I love the first Clash record. Are you
Oh, yeah.
familiar with any of that, or is that like
Oh, no,
out of
I've
your world?
it's a little but I am familiar with The Clash, a little, and I listened to 'em a little bit, but I kind of somehow missed, getting into punk music, and I've been appreciating it more as I get kinda older because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, I didn't listen to much punk growing up," but now, like, whenever I'm exposed to more of it, I'm like, "Man, this is," yeah, like, I can see how there's so much crossover between punk and metal, you
There
know?
is, dude. And a
So
lot. It's just weird that like there's sometimes within things, but I think they like
yeah.
as there's a home in heavy metal
Mhm.
when it comes to community.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's very similar in that light, and that's where I think it really like melds probably the best. But I mean, there's a lot, like I said, like there's a lot of punk rock stuff going on in what we do. I mean, it's
Mhm.
like this, like there is no difference between Bad Religion and Iron Maiden in chords. They
Yeah.
use the
Yeah.
same, they use the same chord progression.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's both Bad Religion and Iron Maiden, except for Iron Maiden is singing about something entirely different. They're doing more of a fantasy trip, more
Mhm.
epic. thing, where Bad Religion would be doing more of the political thing,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
like I don't give a fuck about your like religion too, shit like that.
Yeah.
They were into that, and I really love both bands. It's very interesting, from my point of view of how, coming from so many different eras now of 90s, 2000s, 2010s to the 2020s, that I could literally say that punk and metal are the same. It's just I feel like there's when the barrier, a lot of it just comes down to technique. Like punk,
Hmm.
it's very minimalist.
Hmm.
Um, there's no big guitar solos. So once you
Hmm.
add like the guitar solos and then the dueling guitar,
Yep.
that's what makes those riffs metal.
Yeah. It's
That's what
John,
makes those riffs metal. Like
dude. It's
honestly,
true.
like it,
There's
it
a
really
there,
and there's sometimes there's obviously there's a different beat too.
sure.
There's a different drum beat to it, but it's so similar, and you know like in as far as BPM go, it's gonna be
Hmm.
your punk beat,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And then you got your Iron Maiden beat, shit like that, which
Like,
is a little bit different. That was a bad excuse. I'm 2 joints deep. The fact that I can
oh, you're
even
kidding.
move my hands is should be something, but anyway,
Right.
um I always really I've always been I find myself listening to more punk music now than I have been in a while. I've really gone down. I've been really into the Police right now.
Oh, really?
they
Nice.
they have
Yeah.
this song called Dead End Job
Hmm.
that, like, I resonate with so hard, and I showed it to my drummer the other day. He had never heard it before. He didn't even know who he was listening to. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like Roxanne or
Right.
So Lonely or any of the famous songs. It's like it's crazy, dude. They were a badass band, and they were
Dude.
very
Yeah.
punk, man. Bing wanted to do a punk band, and you know, as a kid, I had this mixture of, like, I have a family of heavy metal. So my mom's brother was in a heavy metal band in LA in like the glam metal era called
Hmm.
Crywolf, and he
Hmm.
worked for a company called WEA, Warner Brother Electric and Atlantic. So he was always like, Metallica had distro through Electric, so it was like I was like 7 years old, and he was like leaving me tapes. I was a
Nice.
weird kid. I was like a little skater kid, but I'm the son of Bill Church. It's like, here's
Mhm.
music. There's like
Yeah.
there's no like, this is the devil music.
Right. Right.
There that doesn't exist in my world. Like, it was like I was listening to Slayer, and Judas Priest at an age where, when I was going to school, other kids didn't weren't even listening to music really.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, I was already wearing band shirts.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. You got started early. Hey,
but
Trevor.
you know, yeah.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, buddy. I think my phone's about to die.
All
I
right,
don't have
all
it trying
right.
to. So I was
We
going to
could
ask
we
you,
could
like,
end it.
yeah, if it's a good spot to end. It was
This
great
is a
talking
good
to you,
spot,
man.
dude. Any
Uh,
any point in time, I just kind of go. We go till we go, and if it's
yeah.
time. So everybody, so where do you go real quick to end it off? Where do people find the Savage Oath stuff at, man?
Okay, so right now, the only place you can find Savage Oath is on Bandcamp, savageoath.bandcamp.com. But pretty soon, we're going to make our own website, put our information up there. We have an Instagram, but it's not exactly. It's only just like like a show announcement or like a merch announcement, that type thing. Savage Oath's really going to start being present and doing stuff in the next couple months here. But right now, it's just on Bandcamp, and soon enough, we'll put our stuff up on, like, Spotify and YouTube and that sort of thing. But it's all going to kind of circle around when that full length album comes out, and we'll
Yeah.
see how people
Super stoked,
think of
man.
it. Yep.
Super happy for you, man. I'm glad that all is doing good. You look good, man. And thank you for
Oh, of course.
coming and chatting with me and taking your time and out of your day. And I love you, bud. And I hope to see you soon. I
Yeah, me
don't know
too,
when
man.
it'll be, but I'm sure we'll be in touch, man. And thank you, and thanks to all the YouTube watchers out there. And we appreciate you guys, and
Hmm.
we'll see y'all later. Later,
All right.
Lee.
See you, Trevor.